Article 110.12 of the National Electrical Code requires that electrical equipment be mounted in a manner that is accessible and allows for safe operation. This article does not specify a specific mounting height for main disconnects mounted outside an enclosure. NFPA 70E, which is the standard for electrical safety in the workplace, recommends that electrical equipment be mounted within reach for operation and maintenance. While it also does not specify a height, it suggests a range of 5 feet to 6 feet 6 inches above the floor as a suitable height for most individuals. UL 508, the standard for industrial control equipment, requires that disconnect handles be mounted in a position that is easily accessible and not more than 6 feet 6 inches above the floor when installed in a vertically mounted enclosure. For outside mounted disconnects on NEMA 4X enclosures, it is generally recommended to mount the handle at a height that allows for easy access and operation, typically between 4 feet and 6 feet above the floor. It is important to consider the height of the personnel who will be operating the disconnect and the specific location of the enclosure. Ensure that the handle is positioned in a way that minimizes the risk of accidental operation or interference. Where other codes or standards apply, such as NFPA 70E or UL 508, the height requirements may take precedence. In some cases, local codes or ordinances may have specific mounting height requirements for main disconnects. Firstly, use a disconnect with an adequately sized handle for proper grip and operation. Secondly, provide adequate lighting around the disconnect to ensure visibility. Thirdly, consider installing a safety barrier or enclosure to prevent unauthorized access and accidental operation. It is important to understand the requirements outlined in the National Electrical Code, or NEC, regarding the installation and mounting of electrical equipment, particularly main disconnects on NEMA 4X enclosures. While the NEC provides general guidelines, it doesn't always specify exact measurements, leaving room for interpretation based on other standards and best practices. This can sometimes create confusion, but it also allows for flexibility to accommodate specific site conditions and user needs. One key principle emphasized in the NEC is accessibility. Electrical equipment must be mounted in a way that allows for safe operation and maintenance. This means that authorized personnel should be able to reach and operate the disconnect handle without undue difficulty. The height at which a disconnect is mounted directly impacts its accessibility, especially in industrial settings where various personnel might need to operate it. While the NEC doesn't specify a precise mounting height, other recognized standards offer more specific guidance. NFPA 70E, the standard for electrical safety in the workplace, is a valuable resource for ensuring that electrical equipment is installed and maintained in a safe manner. It recommends mounting electrical equipment within reach for operation and maintenance. Although it doesn't give a hard number, it suggests a height range of 5 feet to 6 feet 6 inches above the floor as a suitable height for most individuals. This recommendation aligns with ergonomic principles, aiming to minimize strain and promote comfortable operation. Another important standard is UL 508, which covers industrial control equipment. UL 508 requires that disconnect handles be mounted in a position that is easily accessible and not more than 6 feet 6 inches above the floor when installed in a vertically mounted enclosure. This standard sets a maximum height limit to ensure that disconnects remain within reach. When it comes to outside mounted disconnects on NEMA 4X enclosures, which are designed to withstand harsh environmental conditions, a practical approach is recommended. Generally, it's best to mount the handle at a height that allows for easy access and operation, typically between 4 feet and 6 feet above the floor. This range strikes a balance between accessibility for most users and minimizing the risk of accidental operation or interference. Several factors should be considered when determining the optimal mounting height for a disconnect. The height of the personnel who will be operating the disconnect is an important consideration. If the disconnect is located in an area where individuals of varying heights are likely to operate it, it's best to choose a height that accommodates the majority of users. The specific location of the enclosure also plays a role. If the enclosure is located in a confined space or near other equipment, the mounting height might need to be adjusted to ensure adequate clearance and accessibility. It's essential to position the handle in a way that minimizes the risk of accidental operation or interference. This means avoiding locations where the handle could be inadvertently bumped or snagged, which could lead to unintended power outages or equipment damage. In some cases, other codes or standards might take precedence over the general recommendations. For example, if a local code or ordinance specifies a particular mounting height for main disconnects, that requirement must be followed. Similarly, if the disconnect is part of a larger system that is subject to other industry-specific standards, those standards should be consulted to ensure compliance. In addition to the mounting height, several other considerations can enhance the safety and usability of disconnect. Firstly, using a disconnect with an adequately sized handle is crucial for proper grip and operation. A handle that is too small or difficult to grasp can make it challenging to operate the disconnect, especially in wet or slippery conditions. Secondly, providing adequate lighting around the disconnect is essential for ensuring visibility. This is particularly important in dimly lit areas or during nighttime operations. Proper lighting can help prevent accidental contact with live parts and make it easier to identify the disconnect in an emergency. Thirdly, consider installing a safety barrier or enclosure to prevent unauthorized access and accidental operation. This is especially important in areas where the disconnect is accessible to the general public or where there is a risk of tampering. A safety barrier can help prevent accidental contact with the disconnect and reduce the likelihood of unauthorized personnel operating it. Proper selection, installation, and maintenance of electrical disconnects are crucial for ensuring electrical safety. By following industry best practices and adhering to applicable codes and standards, you can minimize the risk of electrical hazards and create a safer working environment. Always consult with qualified electrical professionals to ensure that disconnects are installed and maintained in accordance with all applicable requirements. They can help assess specific site conditions and provide guidance on selecting the appropriate disconnects and mounting locations. Remember that electrical work can be dangerous, and it's essential to take all necessary precautions to protect yourself and others from electrical hazards. The information provided here is intended for general guidance only and should not be considered a substitute for professional advice. Always consult with qualified electrical professionals before performing any electrical work. When dealing with electrical installations, especially concerning main disconnects on NEMA 4X enclosures, it's critical to prioritize safety and compliance with relevant codes and standards. While the NEC provides a foundational framework, other standards like NFPA 70 and UL 508 offer additional guidance and requirements that should be considered. Let's delve deeper into the practical considerations for determining the optimal mounting height of a disconnect handle, keeping in mind the need for accessibility, safety, and compliance. Firstly, consider the environment in which the NEMA 4X enclosure is installed. NEMA 4X enclosures are designed to withstand harsh conditions such as exposure to water, dust, and corrosive substances. This means they are often used in outdoor or industrial settings where environmental factors can impact accessibility. In such environments, it's even more important to ensure that the disconnect handle is mounted to a height that allows for easy operation, even when personnel are wearing gloves or protective gear. Secondly, take into account the specific tasks that will be performed at the disconnect location. Will personnel be routinely switching the disconnect on and off, or will it primarily be used for emergency shutdowns? If frequent operation is anticipated, the mounting height should be chosen to minimize strain and fatigue. If it's mainly for emergencies, the priority should be to ensure that it's readily accessible in a crisis situation. Thirdly, assess the potential for obstructions or other hazards in the vicinity of the disconnect. Are there pipes, conduits, or other equipment that could impede access to the handle? Is there a risk of personnel tripping or falling while attempting to operate the disconnect? The mounting height should be chosen to avoid these hazards and ensure that personnel can safely reach and operate the handle. Fourthly, consider the needs of personnel with disabilities. The Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, sets standards for accessibility in public accommodations and commercial facilities. While the ADA may not directly apply to all industrial settings, it's a good practice to consider the needs of individuals with disabilities when determining the mounting height of electrical equipment. In general, the ADA recommends the operable parts be located no higher than 48 inches and no lower than 15 inches above the finished floor. Fifthly, be aware of any local codes or regulations that may govern the mounting height of disconnects. Some jurisdictions may have specific requirements that must be followed, regardless of what other standards recommend. It's essential to consult with local authorities or qualified electrical professionals to ensure compliance with all applicable regulations. When choosing a specific mounting height, it's helpful to use a measuring tool to verify that the handle will be within easy reach for most users. A simple tape measure can be used to simulate different mounting heights and assess their accessibility. It's also a good idea to involve personnel who will be operating the disconnect in the decision-making process. Their input can provide valuable insights into the practical considerations for choosing the optimal mounting height. Once the disconnect is installed, it's important to label it clearly and provide instructions for its operation. A durable, weather-resistant label should be affixed to the enclosure, indicating the purpose of the disconnect and any safety precautions that should be observed. If the disconnect is part of a complex electrical system, it may be helpful to provide a schematic diagram or other documentation to aid in troubleshooting and maintenance. Regular inspections and maintenance are essential for ensuring the continued safe and reliable operation of electrical disconnects. Disconnects should be visually inspected for signs of damage, corrosion, or wear. Moving parts should be lubricated as needed to ensure smooth operation. Electrical connections should be checked for tightness and integrity. Any problems that are identified should be promptly addressed by qualified electrical professionals. Finally, remember that electrical safety is everyone's responsibility. If you are not qualified to perform electrical work, do not attempt to do so. Always consult with qualified electrical professionals for assistance with any electrical installations or repairs. By following these guidelines and adhering to applicable codes and standards, you can ensure that electrical disconnects are installed and maintained in a safe and accessible manner. This will help to protect personnel from electrical hazards and ensure the reliable operation of electrical equipment. Remember, the mounting height of a disconnect handle is not just an arbitrary measurement. It's a critical factor in ensuring the safety and accessibility of electrical systems. By carefully considering the environment, the tasks to be performed, potential for obstructions, and the needs of personnel with disabilities, you can choose a mounting height that promotes safety and efficiency. And always remember to consult with qualified electrical professionals to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. Their expertise can help you navigate the complexities of electrical installations and make informed decisions that protect the safety of yourself and others. The information presented provides a comprehensive overview of the considerations involved in determining the appropriate mounting height for main disconnects on NEMA 4X enclosures. While specific requirements may vary depending on local codes and industry standards, the underlying principles of accessibility, safety, and compliance remain paramount. By carefully evaluating these factors and consulting with qualified electrical professionals, you can ensure that disconnects are installed and maintained in a manner that minimizes risks and promotes a safe working environment.